Live from Los Angeles, California, this is the Lisa Murray Show. And with your host, Lisa Murray.
The day I felt like I really started living.
I don't have enough money to start this business.
I'm so tired. I hate it. I'm working all the time.
I'm not inspired when I'm worried about money.
Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all.
I'm so sick of all these positive people talking about dreams. What about money? Like, how am I supposed to get the money?
What it's really about, it's about you pursuing what makes you come alive. It's about continually connecting with that energy and just keep doing that. Keep going towards that. That's what it's about. I need to give up. There's too many obstacles. I can't take this shit anymore. Ships are safe in the harbor, but that's not what ships are built for.
It feels really good to be my own boss.
I have dreams, damn it! Hey guys, welcome back. Today I have a great interview with Kate Neligan. Kate is an equine-partnered life coach, author, and speaker. She is such a clear thinker and speaker. Like, I feel like I'm fumbling and jumbling for words. Like, it's hilarious. I'm like, what is happening to me? But like, she's so clear that I almost want to like hire her just to like reinterpret all my episodes in her own clarity, because it's crazy. I mean, I'm good at metaphors, but she's got clarity down. But listening to her feels for me, it feels very relaxing and uplifting at the same time. It's kind of interesting. But Kate gave a TEDx talk called The Pursuit of Perfection. I am going to include that TEDx talk in the show notes on IHaveDreamsDammit.com. I don't know the show number yet, so just check episodes and you'll see her name, Kate Neligan, and that will be where the show notes are. I really hope you enjoy this. She actually worked at Lionsgate. She rose up to be a VP in the movie studio business, and she walked away from that. And now she does coaching, and she uses horses in her coaching practice. And she's pretty amazing. She's an all-around amazing person, and she's really, living life in purpose. And this is a perfect example of how it's not about having one dream, one destination. It's about following the breadcrumbs. It's about going on a journey and not just sticking to one thing, being willing to turn the corner, go up the hill, go around the tree, like change it up. Because what you're really trying to do is follow that feeling and keep following it, that feeling of purpose, of joy. And another thing I really like about her before I get started on this, and I know you don't want to hear just me talking, because you're kind of sick of it probably by now, is her connection to the idea of service. And I really don't talk about that enough in this podcast, and I will. She's reminding me of this, that this is a huge part of it. And this is a huge part of what happened when Derek and Michael died, is I was, didn't want to do anything, as you know, then came around and I'm like, okay, if I do anything at all, I'm going to help people. And that's why I have a film festival, 2 podcasts, films, and all this other stuff, because my total commitment at this point is to helping people while I'm here. It's service-based. It's service-oriented. I really want to help people. And the fact that I also enjoy it is amazing and, perfect. It's great. That means I know that that's me living my dreams. That's my elixir. I'm on purpose. So without further ado, and I can't stand that saying, but without further ado, here is my conversation with Kate Neligan. Enjoy. Okay, so I just want to first welcome you. Is it Kate or Katie?
I go by both, actually. So for business, I'm usually Kate.
Okay, so then I'll call you Katie. No, You're like, business? Okay, whatever. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. And what I love about you, what I really connected with, well, several things, is animals, film studio, seeking for more out of life than just the things that people think are success. Mm-hmm. And so that's what drew me to you. And I was like, I really need to know more about you. And I saw your interview. Then I saw your TED Talk on perfectionism. I'm sorry, I forgot the name. What's the name of the title of your TED Talk?
The Pursuit of Perfection.
Yeah, see, I don't have a problem with that, obviously. No, we all have our own version of that, I suppose. But so I want to start from the beginning, if that's okay. I want to kind of go into, the beginning of you having a dream, like maybe when you're younger. Did you have something that it was in you that you were like, oh, I really want to do this? Or was it more something that evolved later out of actually doing stuff and then you started craving more?
Yeah, I think I've always wanted to do something with animals because I came into this world just loving them and wanting one so badly when I was a kid. So my dream job was to be a vet. And then it evolved into being an animal trainer, like a horse trainer, actually. And then that evolved into actually wanting to do horse training for the movies until I learned a little bit more about what that would entail, and I decided not to. But that kind of, the movies and the horses were just always there since I was a kid, and I've been riding since I was 10. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So you grew up with horses.
I did. I grew up with them. Not, some of the ranches were close, but the ranch that I loved and went to the most when I was a young adult was actually about an hour away. And God bless my mom for driving that to take me to lessons every week. Yeah, it was definitely a passion. But then, horse summer camp and riding in through college and competing in college. And so they were just kind of always there. I only took a little break in my 20s from horses just because I was in the movie studio world and I was, doing other things and not able to get out to be with them.
So, I grew up in Arizona and we had horse property. It wasn't like lots of acreages or anything like that. It was just incorporated into the neighborhood. So there were bridle paths and we had a corral, and my sister had a horse, and then she broke her arm. And so I helped take care of her horse. And then my friends all had horses, and we would ride our horses up to get candy. And I love horses. And I didn't really get to explore it too much because it was like my older sister's horse. So I always felt like, I'm borrowing her horse, or I always had to be really careful, and I didn't really make my own connection. I tried, but I feel like I was scared a little bit, and I was more comfortable with dogs. But then as I've gotten older, I've found myself drawn to horses now. I want to be around horses, and I don't know anybody that has any horses, and I don't know. So that's my connection with horses. I just want to put that out there.
Love it. What do you think is drawing you in? What is it about them?
Why I was afraid?
No, why are you drawn now?
Well, remember the account I told you about, the Instagram account, Sky Dog Horse Sanctuary or whatever? Seeing the horses through her eyes has helped me. Well, I don't know. Actually, that's not true. I think I've been spending a lot of time up in Northern California, out in the country, and I'm starting to understand large animals differently, like deer and goats and cattle. I've always felt connected to cows, though. That's always been there. But it's made it so that I've adjusted my sight to them. And I think it's a different thing than like a domesticated animal that's in your house. I mean, that's totally different. I don't really know, actually. That's a good question. I shouldn't even answer that because I should just say, I don't know, because I don't know.
We'll have to explore together at some point, because there's usually, I find in the women that I work with that are drawn to horses later, when they haven't had them since they've been a kid or a teen, they're really coming to learn new awarenesses about themselves around power and around pairing strength and softness, because that's what the horse does so beautifully. And I feel like as women, that's one of the best lessons that we can really learn right now, because those two things can go really well together, but we don't always think that, right? That to be big and strong and powerful can also really be paired with softness and gentleness and quietness and all of those kind of feminine qualities.
That's probably what it is, because I am stepping into some power right now. I'm doing some things differently, and a lot of things are coming up for me. And then I just stumbled upon Brene Brown and the whole power and vulnerability. So I think you're right. I think there's something going on there. That's really interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to come out and do some therapy with you.
Yes. And it's funny. So it's therapeutic in nature, but I am really clear. I don't call myself a therapist because I don't have that training. And I really want to honor the therapists that do have that background and years of schooling. So I'm really grateful that I have a master's in spiritual psychology and a certification as an equine experiential education coach. But I am clear that I stay in the coaching space. However, the work can feel like it's therapeutic, right? There's often a lot of emotion and releasing and processing that can happen. But I always want people to leave with that kind of action plan and those next steps and that kind of grounding into, great, we moved some energy today, but now what's next in your life? How do you want to apply this back to relationships or work or whatever it might be?
That's really cool. I love that. Okay, so now if a listener's like, wait, you were talking of what happened? How'd we get into this? Okay, so let's start now. So you were always around horses. I wasn't aware of that. So you were always around
Yes.
horses growing up. And then what made you want to work in a film studio? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, that was fascinating. So for me, when I graduated college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had an undergrad in psychology, and I was living at my parents in New Jersey and certainly drawn to the Big Apple. And my mom kept encouraging me to call my cousin, who was at New Line Cinema at the time. And I was so resistant because, like, still in that rebellious, I'm not listening to my parents space. And then, but I did. I called her and I had a job within 2 weeks, and it was such an amazing first job. I'm still friends with my boss from that time, and that was like 20 years ago. So it was a wonderful company working in video on demand, and really young and passionate, in the best part of New York City in Soho. And so I got to move and live with my best friends in Hoboken, New Jersey, and commute into the city. And I just I always say I had my Sex in the City days. Like, I had my 20s with like going and partying hard and working hard. And what happened there is, my first job was kind of in the sales role, and then it moved into marketing. And when I was in marketing, we worked with all the movie studios, and I just thought they were the coolest people at the time. And I went out to visit California at one point with some of my best friends, and I'll never forget, we pulled into the Warner Brothers lot, and I literally felt like a kid going into Disneyland. Like, I just felt like so much magic happened on set on a studio where things were an idea, and then they were fully created in every detail and every matter. And I fell in love with the creation energy. And so I wanted to be at a studio. So I just kept pursuing it until it happened. And I landed at Lionsgate, which was a dream job, and was there for several years until, my master's really shook me up, and I started to realize I wanted to do something else that was more of service and more heart-centered and more really, like, they have a book called Loyalty to Your Soul. And that's really what it became about for me, like, that I needed to actually do something that was a bigger dream than just what my ego wanted, which was title and money and,
Yeah.
status and all of that.
So when you went to Lionsgate, are they only located in Los Angeles, or is there another one in the East Coast?
I actually had to move to work for a movie studio, and I took a stepping stone job. I was at American Film Institute for a while, also an incredible place, and got very lucky actually to land there first, and then ended up at Lionsgate. So they are in actually the Santa Monica.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, near the beach, and don't have the campus that like a Warner Brothers does, but still, I was immersed in movie magic, as I call it. But yeah, I definitely had to take that leap, and I actually had always wanted to live in California. So that was a dream that came true for me.
Wow.
Was moving and buying a convertible and living by the beach. Like, those are all dreams that I made happen.
And for people listening who've never been to Santa Monica, I mean, it's so beautiful. Everything's right there on the water, and it's just amazing. It's like that. It's like a postcard. It really is that pretty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, when I worked at Paramount Pictures, I miss that sometimes. I miss that feeling of walking around in something that's larger than life. It has history. And I love the way you described that. It's like, the manifestation of an idea. That's so true. And the sound studios, and it's magical. It is. And it's definitely a good feeling. But for me, when I would walk around there, I thought, I'm not meant to be in this office. And it was so strong in me that no matter how much I was like, oh, this is amazing, and there's so many perks, I would just, this feeling of like, I'm not supposed to be here. It was so strong that I fully couldn't enjoy it. And like, I know other people in my life are like, oh, it must be nice. And I was thinking, well, it's not what you think though. It's like, if you're not happy, or if there's something gnawing away at you, there's nothing you can do about that. That's what it is. That's the reality. And I should be grateful to have that job. But if, that other thing was calling me, I had to listen to it. So I left.
Yes. And it's not for everyone. I mean, a lot of my friends have stayed in entertainment and have spent many, many years there, and it is for them. But it's so hard for me to be inside an office myself, now working in nature almost every day. And so it's a totally different experience. And I think that when we know, and we just have to kind of start to follow that, even if it's scary. And that's the thing. I end up coaching actually a lot of folks that are still in the entertainment industry about how can they find more fulfillment either at their current office, or what do they need to create on the side that may be a side hustle to begin with, that may be an entrepreneurial venture that they then leap into and work in that full time. But I think I've just been an entrepreneur since I was a kid, so it's just kind of hard for me to work for people.
Right. I think so for me too. I know. And I didn't really know what that was, but I did have someone tell me, my boss, when I worked at a record label, he's like, you're not really an employee, you're an entrepreneur.
Right.
And I was like,
and
what?
There's a difference.
Yeah, I know. Because I was always trying to like recommend things and change things and lead things. And that's cool up to a point if you're an employee, but then you've got to at some point just settle into what is. And that was really hard for me.
Yes. And I find that the people who are kind of the best employees, or even like bosses, they code the company line. And that was tough for me after a while, because I'm like, I can see solutions here that we need to embrace that won't cost much, but will maybe take a little bit of time, but we need to implement them. And it was like very much maintaining status quo. And so, yeah, the trailblazers and the change agents, if they want entrepreneurship, by all means, go for it, get the skills and the training. But it's corporate is got its benefits, but it's not for everyone. And the same thing with entrepreneurship.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It goes both ways on that one. So can you, I want to break it down to like a granular level of, because for some people listening to this, they've maybe maybe they haven't started going for their dreams yet. Maybe someone does want to work in a film studio or does want to move in that direction in terms of a surface dream situation. And I always forget to talk about that part, because for me, I've moved into something else. But I have people tell me, I want to know more about those days when you were at Paramount or you worked at a record label. I want to know about that. So I try to remember to go, okay, let's talk about that. So in terms of your perfectionism, and so you were probably doing well at your job and you were moving up and you felt there. Let's talk a little bit about the good parts of what you felt and what you were learning about yourself. And then what did it feel like in your body on a daily basis that was pulling you in the opposite direction? Because you had everything telling you to stay on that track, and you'd be a millionaire, you'd be successful, you'd have insurance, everything would be great. What was that like on a daily, level for you?
Yeah. So to answer your first one, it was really about, I had this dream to work for a studio. And so it was really about, what do I need to do to make it happen? And I just did everything that I could think of to get myself inside a studio asking for informational interviews. And so I just tried to meet as many people as I possibly could. And I did. And so I ended up eventually getting hired by someone I had done an informational interview with a couple of years prior. And then I decided to take the job that was the best next step, right? So it's the dream process for me is really about keeping. One of the studio execs said this to me actually in one of my informational interviews. She said, keep your eye on the prize. So it was always about planning for what I wanted, keeping my eye on it, but willing to take other steps that would get me there, and staying patient, which is not always easy when we're pursuing our dreams. We want it now.
Yep.
But the good parts of, what I learned really inside the studio system in so many ways was, the interworkings of a large company, and from everything from being in meetings with the CEO to just really knowing how we interacted with our partners, how to deliver amazing customer service, build relationships and partnerships. So the hardest part about leaving for me was I loved, working with my friends at iTunes and Xbox and all the different cable companies that we were working with. So I had really strong relationships. That's always been the number one key to my success. Mm-hmm. But I really developed a lot of confidence. So my dream was to be VP by 33, and I did it at 31. And it was
Wow.
much, yeah. And I mean, I look back and I'm like, thank God, but that's actually part of where that perfectionism thing came from. It was this whole, if I just get to this place, then I'll get approval, right? Then people will like me, or I've made it, and it's all those stories of if I get here, then the outer world validates me. And that's not true. It's just, we have to find that inner validation. And so it was a great learning experience. I have so many wonderful memories from those days. And as a woman in Hollywood during that time, it was also challenging because, there truly is a boys club in Hollywood. And it was something that I knew that if I had to go to the top, how I'd have to change to get there, or what I would need to do, was not something I was willing to. And so for me, it just became, what else is available? And I had such drive. I wanted to be CEO of a studio back then.
Wow.
But it just, and the confidence was there. And certainly my skill set could have been developed to get there. The year before I left, I won the Women in Cable Award for Advocate Leader, which is Leah Award. Yeah. And so it was really, and I was being groomed to go to EVP and whatnot, but it was something that, again, it was just starting to become out of integrity for me, because something larger was coming, even though I didn't know exactly what it was. But my master's program really shaped me, because they asked us 3 questions. Why are you here? Who are you? Why are you here? And what difference do you want to make on the planet? And so it just became, it wasn't being in a studio.
Wow. I love those questions. What is it again? Why are you here?
But yeah, who are you? Why are you here? And what difference do you want to make on the planet?
Oh my God, I want to tape that on my mirror every morning. That's how I think, though. I always say, where did we come from? Why are we here? And where do we go when we die? Like that's my 3 questions I always want to know. Okay. So what you said quickly, that it was something that in order to move up at the studio, it was something that you didn't want to do or didn't have in you. Is that because of the dream that was growing in you, or the sense of purpose for something bigger? Or is there something like time-wise, it was starting to take over your life? Was there some other energies that was making you feel like, I can't go down this track?
I think it was a combination of both. The dream was rising, and the other parts of me were sort of dying. The parts of me that, or wanted to die, the parts of me that were more goal-oriented, even above relationship, or that were like, my masculine got really strong, and I'm like, that's not who I am, right? Like I'm a feminine being, but that was, my masculine was taking over, and that is just this doing and all work, like levels of workaholism for sure, and just this. So the biggest issue, quite frankly, was I was promoting horror films, and some of them were pretty violent and pretty disturbing. Meanwhile, I was going to Agape, which is all about unconditional love, which is a church in Los Angeles, or I was, studying this spiritual text about unity and oneness, and I felt so out of alignment. And I had a moment where I lifted above myself on a call that I was selling a film, and I just went, what are you doing right now? Because it was not how I wanted to be spending my time. And I just felt so out of integrity that I was promoting stuff, which is also, at the same time, I was creating a conscious media channel, Synergy TV. And that was really drawing me, right? That was my first dream. So what's been interesting about my path, and why I've been so grateful to be here with you today, is like my dreams have changed, right? So I had this dream to be CEO of a studio, which really was about feeding my ego, until my ego started to chill out and my heart started to grow and get louder. And then that next dream was, okay, how do I change entertainment and positively affect entertainment by creating more love-based, inspirational, and uplifting content, right? So that was Synergy TV. And then the horses came in a little bit later, and have completely taken over my life. So, there have been different dreams, and I think that's the thing that's okay. It's like our path doesn't look always very linear. or straight
Mm-hmm.
and narrow. It's very much, it's a windy road, and we have to be willing to take turns when we see them.
Exactly. And I always say, because people say, well, I don't really have a dream, or they say, I achieved a dream and I wasn't happy. And for me, I think number one, I always say, change it up. You should be in a dream zone, a zone where you're always moving towards this feeling. And whether you're accomplishing something that people call a dream or not isn't the point. That, you could do that, you could not do that. That's irrelevant. The point is that you're aware and you stay connected to yourself and you stay connected to that guidance. And they're like breadcrumbs, and each one leads you to the next one. So it sounds like you were connected to that and you were listening to that, and that's led you to each step. And I think that's more realistic to a lot of the people that I know that are successful in the entertainment industry, that are artists, that are music artists or actors or filmmakers. It's like they don't have a linear path, and I think this idea of a linear path is really, not happening anymore, really.
Mm-hmm.
About the internet, and like you started Synergy TV, and I do want to talk a little bit about that. But like just being able to start that wasn't something you could have even done. It didn't exist. When you were a kid, you couldn't say, I want to start this, channel, because it doesn't exist. It's not
Right.
So we're living in a cool time where you really can do a lot of things. And I think maybe it's always been like this, but just to follow that feeling and see where it leads you. I remember I was when I worked at Paramount, I had 2 different jobs. And at one point I did the subtitles for not subtitles. What am I trying to say? My brain is like, once I'm done with something, I shut it down and I don't remember anything about it. So basically I would screen a movie over and over and over again, because I was, doing the quality control, and I did the digital, but also the film, because they still had film then. And the film Revolutionary Road, did you ever see that with Liam?
Yes.
Okay. I was sobbing. It was just me and like 2 other guys that were like working from the company that did the titles. And they're like just sitting there with their clipboards, and they've seen the movie 1,000 times, and they're looking for scratches on the film. And, and I was too, technically, but I was sobbing because it was like, for me, it had so much meaning about why do we make the decisions we make in life? And why do we have to be unhappy? Why do we have to say, well, I have to do this because I already made this decision, so I got to hold on to it, or I'm going to look like a person that failed or gave up. And just what it was doing to their relationship and what it was doing to them individually. I was so aware of like, I want to be part of that discussion, and I want to help people so they don't live this way. And I was just like literally sobbing, and I was like, God, this is like the best possible job. If I'm going to have a job and not have like a purpose driven situation, this is the best possible thing. But then that was so glaring to me that I was like, okay, I gotta go. And so it's almost like in the arts, you're more pushed, like for you doing horror, you're promoting horror movies, but then you're going to Agape. It's like you're having it pushed on you so hard that you have to make a decision, or you have to push it down hard.
Yes. And it's so true that people think that, well, I started this path, I need to see it out, or I can't give up now, it's going to look like quitting. And it's really that, first of all, I mean, the divorce rate is something like 50%. And I'm like, well, obviously people are willing to jump ship there, but it's like with jobs, I talk to people sometimes and they're like, yeah, but this is what I thought I was supposed to do. And I'm like, yeah. And now something else is coming through you. And can you be present with that and see what it is and allow it to have its time and its voice and its way with you to see what's possible? And I had that when I first started working with the horses. I was like, oh my God, if I work, because I had Paramount out to the ranch and I also had EA Games out, and I was like, they are going to judge me for giving up on this path in the studio world. And I'll never forget, I was sitting next to one of the executives at the gaming company, and he said, I thought I had a cool job. I play video games for a living. You're outside with horses. How amazing. And I went, you know what? All these stories don't matter, right? These stories of insecurity or what if I should have, and this and that. And there's no plan. Like there's no life manual. We get to create it. And it really is like allowing our happiness to guide us and allowing our hearts to guide us, because then when we are filled, people around us love seeing that, right? They don't feel like they have to do anything for us then, and we can be more of service. So it really is just about what makes you happy, what lights you up. and knowing that no job is going to do that every single day, every single moment, but that, most of your days should be spent doing something that you love.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Yeah, before my friend was killed, which is what started me on a whole different journey. We were talking like every night, and he said, "Are you happy?" And I was like in the throes of just work, 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 work. And I was already kind of thinking like, I got to change. This isn't me. I don't know what I'm doing, but I've never been one of those like external achievers, but I was sort of on a roll. And so once you kind of have some success, it sort of pulls you in more. And he said, "Are you happy?" And I go, "No, I'm not happy. This is hard. LA is very competitive and I'm doing all this stuff." And he was just laughing the whole time I was, and I go, why are you laughing? He's like, "Because you of all people should be happy." And
Mm,
I thought, and then he died. And I was like, okay.
wow.
And it really like stuck with me. But then I was miserable for years because, whatever, all this other loss. But that has, echoed in my mind, and it's so true. And I was always saying that growing up, that, let that guide you, that joy. And what's that quote? Like, the world needs people who have come alive, or I don't know, I don't have it in front
Yes.
of me. It's true.
Yes.
We don't need specific things. We just need people to come alive and be connected to that sense of purpose or joy or service. And I like that you're saying service. I like that.
Yeah.
Uh, that was something that I talked about in one of the other episodes about having a dream and, the hero's journey and coming back with the elixir. And I said, if I don't think that all dreams sort of fall under that, because like if someone has an external, like a dream to have a really nice body or compete in something, and I feel like if it's missing a service element, and I might be wrong on this, but I feel like if it's missing a service element to it, it's not under the same umbrella, but maybe it's serving people in a way that we can't understand, and just seeing someone that's happy or that they've achieved something. But I think there's something about that, about giving back to humanity or to people. What do you have to
Yeah.
say about that? Because I know you have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah, that is a great question. And that's pretty much what, at USM, where I got my master's, they talk about that last question: what difference do you want to make on the planet? How do you want to be of service? And what the missing piece was for me was always that my life was about my accomplishments or about me. And our lives are about us. I mean, they really are. We're here for growing and learning and all of that. But what was missing from my happiness was seeing that I could make a real difference here and being of service. And so when, I love horses, I could ride and hang out with them every day, post photos, glow, and be happy, right? And that would be a hobby, and that could be people would, maybe feel some brighter energy seeing me glowing, because I get a lot of those comments. People are like, "Oh, I love seeing these photos, they make me really happy." Great. The happiness is being transmitted. However, like the coolest thing that I ever think of is like, how did I find something that is naturally my happiest place in the world with the creatures I love the most, where I would do it anyways, right? It would be a hobby, but I'm able to make a profession out of it. And I never believed that that was possible. And I mean, when I first had a friend say, "I see you working with horses, I see you coaching them," I said, "What are you talking about? Like, we're going to be horseback riding and I'm going to be giving advice?" Like, I couldn't even picture it because I didn't know it existed, right?
Right.
I didn't know equine coaching existed until I started to find it, and first found it from the therapy lens with addicts, and realized that wasn't going to make me happy, but that is a wonderful service for other people. But really, it's been about customizing who are the people that I'm meant to help the most. But the fact that I'm able to be of service and do something I love is like, that's elixir, right? To me, that's the
Mhm.
ultimate, which is I'm happy and then I'm helping my clients get happier. And so that really is, and it's funny, we keep using this word happy because it's actually not a word I use a lot. I use the word joy a little more, because I think the pursuit of happiness can be a little bit like the pursuit of perfection. It's not always fully attainable. It's just moments. But I had a horse named Happily in my life, and she really introduced me to all of this, and kind of, she was my bridge. I got her right after, excuse me, right before, a couple months before she came into my life. I left Lionsgate, and then my journey with horses really began again. And and it was hobby at first until it became mentorship, apprenticeship, which then it became career. And now it's like full-fledged business. And so it's been steps, right? It's been leaning into it. But the piece of me being of service is what keeps me going no matter what. It's my why. And it is, it just feels good to help people. And I think ultimately, if we have our basic needs met, that's really what we're here to do.
Right. Yeah. It's because, like, a doctor is technically healing people, but if he's not happy being a doctor, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like that's a really cool, the blending of loving what you do and you're helping people. You're of service to people. That's like the highest level of all things, I think.
Yeah, because we can be of service to others in many ways, but if we resent it or we it burns us out. Like I was working with a healing practitioner, coaching her, and she's really burnt out and like losing her why. And she's so good at what she does. And I was like, hey, listen, you need a vacation, you need a pause, you need to reconnect with your why. What else do you want to do? How can we change your practice so that you're seeing less clients right now and yet you're still feeling like you're helping people? How do we need to change and shift things? And that's sometimes what it takes is just, it doesn't take a totally new career move or a new job or new, offering, but it does take maybe some shifting of the current workings. And that's one thing I'm really conscious of as I build my practice, that I don't want to get to a point where I burn out the way I did at the studio, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I burnt my adrenals badly in the movie studio world, and I lived on the kind of masculine energy of doing that. I lost my beingness. And so what I love about the horses is they force you to do beingness first. And so I'm constantly in this, how can I create what I most want to have, serve the most people, and really take good care of myself while I'm doing it.
I just love your clarity. You're so clear with your purpose and with actual helpful, I don't know, you're just an amazingly clear person. And I think that's your biggest gift right now to me that I see. I'm like, good God, you were so clear.
Oh, thank
I'm
you.
like fumbling over my words. Like I looked at words and you're like, this is the situation. I'm like, oh my God, I could listen to you forever.
Oh, thank you. You're so sweet. I was thinking of that word the other day, clarity, because a lot of people come to coaches for clarity, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
And I'm always like, I feel like I had clarity coming out of the womb. Like there are times when I don't know, like right now I'm thinking about getting a horse and I'm like, I don't know. And I'm just, I'm unsure. Right. And so there are times when decision-making is not always clear for me, but I know I want a horse. So then it just becomes, is this one the right fit? But it's ultimately, I think I'm in touch with my heart. And so the heart is really a place of often a lot of clarity, and the mind, oh my God, the mind can trip us up because it really likes to think of shoulds and what ifs and all these other things. And it can really spin us.
Absolutely.
Do you love going to farm stands and buying fresh from the farm produce? Do you have to pull over on road trips to pet a cow? No? Okay, maybe that last part's just me. Regardless, we can all agree on our love for all things agriculture. And how about art? Don't you love watching films about artists, painters, singers, dancers, musicians? Coming in September is the Ag and Art Film Festival in Vacaville, California, and they are open for entries. So if you have a film, a narrative, a documentary, a short, or a feature, if you're a student or if you're a pro, this is your chance to show your film to the world. And by the world, I mean Vacaville, California. But still, it's going to be awesome. Visit agandartfilmfestival.com for more information, and you can submit your film exclusively on filmfreeway.com.
I want to move forward and talk about what you do with the horses, but I have to go back for just a second because you said burnout, and I experienced burnout. I didn't understand what burnout was until I went through it. And well, I want to know, what was burnout like for you? How did you experience it physically, emotionally, everything?
Well, I had to go to doctors right around the time I was leaving Lionsgate. I was aware that my system was pretty messed up, and I don't know exactly how I knew. I think it was like I was tired and I didn't have the same energy I used to have. I've always had a lot of natural great energy. And so I went to naturopaths and I went to different doctors and ultimately learned about the word adrenals, which no one was talking about years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and how important those things are and how we need to love the heck out of them and take care of them. But there's so much I didn't know about, as a woman being in masculine energy, us using our testosterone and essentially what that does to the adrenals. For men, it's fine. It helps them. That's what they're supposed to do. But for us, it's not. And so, it was always just do more and do it faster in corporate America. And my whole thing is like, radically slowing down and becoming present so that we make the right choices. But that it wasn't really acceptable back then. And it's something I help companies with now. But for me, I had to go off gluten. I had to go off dairy. I had to go off sugar. I had to go off alcohol. Like I had to take a break from all of these things in my body that were actually like slowing it down to the point where I wasn't feeling good. And that's what was trying to happen. My adrenals are trying to ask me to just like slow down to the present moment. And then luckily the horses got me there. But I was just not myself. And I'm so glad I gave up gluten. That's one thing I've kept out of my diet and mostly off dairy So yeah, what was it like for you? Were you tired a lot of the time?
Oh my God. I can always rally. I'm like the type of person, no matter what, I'll be the last one to go to bed. I'll be the one sitting on the ground at the record label, stamping postcards and I will do whatever it takes to get the job done, which is, obviously businesses love a person like me because I'm just an
Yes.
employee, but I'll give it my all.
Yes.
And so when I was running my own business, it was like, I loved it. I loved what I was doing. But it was a very male energy situation because it was very much like, the music industry is also male dominated, oriented, ran by. And it was like, I had to have this strong, different kind of way of being that wasn't natural for me.
Mm.
And plus it was a lot of stress. And I I started feeling like I couldn't rally anymore. And I remember I used to have a Christmas party every year, and I loved my Christmas party. I was known for it. And the night I was planning that Christmas party, everything looked beautiful. The food was amazing. I went upstairs and I just cried and I just asked God. I said, "Please give me energy for tonight." And I was like, "What is this? Like if I can't get my energy together for a party and it's my party." And I knew then that something was wrong, but I still didn't even know. I still didn't even know what that was. I thought, well, maybe I'm just working too hard right now. I didn't know it was a bigger issue. And then when my friend was killed, and then I would hit these adrenal, I don't know, I guess I call them, what do they call it? Like adrenal fatigue or whatever,
Yeah.
when you just drop out. And because my brother died shortly after. And
Mm.
when I would go to Arizona to visit my mom, I would, couldn't get up for days. I couldn't wake up. I would start to kind of get up and then I would just, I was like drugged or something, but I wasn't, but I was just,
Yeah.
I'd never in my life experienced that kind of fatigue ever.
Mm.
And it scared me. And so I started researching different things because not even caffeine, like people go, oh, just have coffee or do this. I'm like, no, you don't
Mm.
understand. It's beyond all of that. Your body just says peace out and it's
Yeah.
done. And it's taken me years to recover. And I think anyone who's listening to this, if you feel this way, start making some changes now because it's a lot
Yes.
harder when you actually crash. It takes a long time to come back.
Yes. Yes.
But I'm interested in the gluten angle. I hadn't thought about that. Maybe I look into that a little bit more.
Yeah, it was 3 doctors telling me I had to go off gluten or I would potentially have Hashimoto's and autoimmune disease. And I was like, what? And I resisted it at first. And then I was like, okay, 3 doctors, 3 different doctors, I'm doing it. And so, yeah, I don't, I going off gluten was a godsend. Like I would be angry for no reason. And now like I rarely get angry. And I like my skin cleared up, my energy cleared up. gluten was a nightmare for my system. So I have a sensitivity to it. I'm not allergic, but yeah, so that was really what was, and the body attacks gluten molecules as though they are, you're in disease. And so it just uses energy it doesn't need to. So I'm so glad that I went off that. And I always get sleep. That's the one thing I try to coach everyone on to. It's like, get your sleep, whatever it takes. That is my number one priority, because that's the best way for the body to restore itself. And it's not just once a year we go on vacation for a week and try to calm down. Like every night we reset.
Absolutely. I am a huge sleep advocate. I call it cancer curing naps or cancer curing sleep. I could just think people don't get enough sleep and they don't get enough quality sleep.
Yes.
And yeah, I'm a huge advocate for sleep. And also naps. I really think people should take naps.
Yeah, for sure. They feel so good.
I know. And it helps you kind of have like a good finish to your day. If you just take a nap midway or, around 3 or something like that. And then you're good till like 10, or whatever. Yeah. I don't know. Depends on your schedule. Okay.
I would nap in my car at the studio when I got too tired.
Oh my God.
I can't get through this day. So I would just pop in the backseat of my car, take a nap. It was great.
That's funny. That's awesome. So I want to talk about shadow work, because I think I'm, coming into this whole power thing that we talked about in the beginning, which is maybe why I'm drawn to horses. I'm finally starting to realize at the end of last year, I had all these like conflicts last year. And I realized that I have a problem being comfortable when I'm a leader of something, or when I have like a powerful position or stance on something. I'm really uncomfortable about it. I'm a middle child. I like to remain neutral. I like to be helpful, but it's almost like my purpose keeps leading me out front a little bit on some things. And I feel very unsafe and uncomfortable. So that's brought up conflicts with women. I'm having a lot of conflicts with women. And then I'm like, what is happening? So, what I'm viewing it as is like I started making this realization about my fatal flaw, which is, for me, I've always had a dual personality situation where I have the part of me that I used to be very quiet when I was a kid. I like never talked. I stood behind other people and I observed everyone and everything. And then somewhere along the line, this pushy spirit stage mom came out, and I pushed myself into all these big situations that terrifies me. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this to me? And so I'm always unhappy, because it's like, well, not always unhappy, but there's always some part of me that's suffering, because when I'm pushing myself out there, the quiet part of me is going, why are you doing this? And when I'm being quiet and reflective, the other part of me is like, why are you keeping this to yourself? We got to get out there in the world. We got to help people. And so I never noticed that was going on. And that's why I'm calling it a fatal flaw, because I would sabotage one or the other. So that's connected to the whole shadow thing, I think, because it was coming out in conflicts with people. And I just want to know, how do you see shadow work? And then how do you work with that do you work with that with the horses then?
Yeah. So amazing awareness there. Thank you for sharing that, because I can relate to that too, on the part of me that wants to stay small and quiet. But then as soon as I do the meditate, and I'm like writing all the time and like coming up with great meditation audios that I never share. And then the part of me that's like, go out into the world. And then the part that's like a little timid, going, oh my God, you're so exposed and you're so seen right now. So I think we might all have these parts of us that are like, feel safe when we're out there, or feel safe when we're not. But this like push-pull energy. But I like that you thought it's about leadership, which I think is so interesting, because yes, I do shadow work and leadership work with the horses, because with horses, if you are going to lead a 1,200 pound prey animal, you have to gain their trust. You have to be clear in your communication, and you have to mean it and be congruent. And when you can do those things, horses will naturally stay with you. They'll follow you, they'll move with you. And so there's exercises I do on the ground with people where they learn how to be in a certain energy state, which is very much mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual, so that they can guide a horse, ask a horse for something, move a horse, have a horse follow them. And so they learn these ways of being, which you and I could talk about, but you'll never really fully get until you start to be them, and practice them and anchor those energies. And then on the shadow side, what I love about the horses is that the stories that we tell ourselves come up so quickly. So even just going to say hello to a horse is like one of the first exercises I learned. And if a horse doesn't acknowledge you, people's shadow stories come up. The horse doesn't like me, or that horse is a jerk, right? Like, so it's very interesting to watch the shadow, where like people, one of the last few sessions I did, people were saying to me, Kate, I feel like I'm doing it wrong. Like I'm always doing it wrong. And I'm like, wow, how's that voice serving you? And it's like, and that's the thing about service, right? It's like, how are we of service to others, but how do we serve ourselves in a way where we're the best versions of ourselves? So they ultimately, those stories don't serve. And so we need to rescript, and we need to find truth and find heart-centered ways of being with ourselves and with the horses. And the horses teach us that because they're so non-judgmental. They are incredibly accepting and incredibly loving. And for a lot of people, just being around that energy is a game changer because they haven't had it in a while. And then they start to learn how to be like the horse. And it's life-changing because they are big and powerful and still incredibly loving and kind. And so those two things of like, the horses will often say, get silent, get quiet. And there's so much bigness in the quiet. There's so much power in the quiet. And then when we're out in the world and we're being loud and big and powerful, how can we do that from a grounded, centered place where there's also an inner knowing that I'm doing this because it's my joy and my passion and my contribution, not because I need the world to like me, right?
Right.
It's so unique how it works. But these subtleties is why I love working with horses, because we see them and then we become them very easily.
Yeah, it's almost like our energy starts to go into tune with them and resonate with whatever their energy field is as well. Probably like that herd, right? Like a herd energy or something.
Yes, and we do. Their hearts are 5 times the size of ours. So just by being with them, our heartbeat starts to connect with theirs, and we start to slow down. And really, we have to be present for our own safety with the horses, and because that's how they best respond to us.
Oh my
But
gosh.
yeah.
See, I do a lot of work with dogs. I grew up with dogs, and I rescue dogs, and I rescue like usually pit bulls. And the past few days I've been rescuing these 2 bull mastiffs that were abandoned in the country. And it's different, I guess. I was trying to think of like, how can I reconcile, because they're not prey, but there is a whole trust process that's been going on and I do see that too when people come in and go, oh, your dog doesn't like me, or whatever. I always think that's weird. I'm like, where'd you go why right there? Like, why'd you assume that? Maybe he's having a bad day. Maybe he ate a weird bone. I don't know.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's so fascinating to see the stories. I've seen people accomplish goals with the horses really quickly and go, oh, well, I got lucky.
Oh God.
Yeah. So the stories are immediate and exposed, which therapists will say they've worked with in an office with people for a long time, and they can't get to the truth and the core of their clients as fast as they can with horses, because of how much they are reflecting what's going on in that person. They have a way of exposing stuff. And it's because horses their survival has been because they've had to trust humans and partner with humans. And they've done it really through transportation and then entertainment. And now I believe they're really here for healing. By the way, someone shared with me something that just totally clicked for me, which was that my path was entertainment and is now very much about healing. And that's the horses' purpose as well, right? They've been these entertainment vehicles doing shows and all this like racing and all this stuff that we've done with them. And now they're really moving, for those of us that can really see their true gifts, they're really moving into this place of being healing and ascension partners and helping us awaken to really like the higher self, the true us, right? The true nature. But yeah, I think they're fascinating, and dogs are incredible teachers in their own way, right? They often love us no matter what, but we do get to practice leadership with them too. It's a little different, but they truly respect like the solid, clear, kind-hearted alpha, right? And the horse, the lead mare, is the same way. She makes really good decisions that's for the benefit of all, and the horses trust that. And that's the way we can learn how to be leaders now too, is that we're not just making choices for ourselves at the expense of everyone else. There's really this unity consciousness, is the word I've been thinking of the last day or two, where we're moving together, right? And we're taking care of each other, but we're making decisions that are great for all of us, right? And we cannot be divided, or we're actually more in danger.
Right, exactly. And also, I think like I'm just thinking about this group I meet with once a month, and we met last night. It's women, and just basically working with the woman energy and power, that it's so different than the male energy power, but we all have it both inside of us. But and we were all talking about how in politics and everything, we sense this rising of like the woman power, which is a whole different dynamic than like the way a woman would lead is very different than the way a man leads, obviously. And someone mentioned that in Antarctica, they did an experiment, or I don't know what they did, but they brought the men up to the Antarctica, and then there was all this conflict, and then they brought the women in, and then everything got resolved and everything was moving along. And I'm like, because we're more about connections and energy and, altruistic views and whatnot. So it's interesting. And I think that this work with horses and work with animals in general, it is more about energy and being aware of that other level of existence, and just being open to it and knowing how to work within that.
Yes.
And
And
nobody would say a
it's
horse is not powerful. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
men are like, oh, yeah, yeah. But hey, that's the, animals are very powerful. They've survived all these years using that energy.
Yes. And that's the thing. And like where I'm at is we can't be afraid to have conversations about energy, right? I'm a former atheist, which is fascinating to me when I think about it, how far I've come. But we do have to have these conversations about energy, and physics and science. We understand what energy is. And ultimately, the horses are teaching us that we lead with our energy, that we are our energy, that when our energy is clean, that we can create more. And when we and then it's our responsibility to take care of our energy, so that how we show up, it matters, and people can sense that now more than ever before. I'm noticing so many people become more and more sensitive, feeling things and responding to things through an energetic self, and not just through a thought-based self.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Like the quote, the truth will set you free, but it'll piss you off first. I think people, when you get back in touch with the energy of stuff, people just assume it's going to be this great ride of like, riding a wave of greatness. And it is, and it leads you to great things, and it leads you to self-awareness and different experiences. But it also opens you up to the deeper pains of life, and the deeper, for me anyways, it's opened me up to like, I feel things so much more deeply now. And if somebody is, even if it's just a light thing, like, well, I don't know, maybe this isn't light, but someone in the room isn't living their truth, and I can feel that they're just not living their truth, that affects me more than when I was living the way I was living before, versus all the way down to seeing something horrible in the news of someone really suffering, or an animal suffering, or the planet suffering. It hits me a lot harder, but I have to take that in order to have the other. It all comes as a package.
Yes. And we protect what we love. So we have to feel into those feelings of love and compassion. And compassion, it can be unbearable at times to just feel into how much we do care, because we are all connected. And that's also why we're feeling so much. And, it can be talk in this felt sense, but there is science behind mirror neurons and all of this. So it really is time for people to stop questioning things, and in the sense where they're like, need proof and I need all of this, and really just start to feel into what are they sensing? What is the information that they're getting from their body, from their hearts and their mind, and their gut, and really start to apply that, right? Instead of just either trusting what someone else is saying to them, or their past, because our past is is over now and there's a new world coming. And so we're really in this place right now where we have to start to listen to ourselves and our own inner guidance system.
Absolutely. I remember when those people used to be in the corner of the TV and they would like be doing sign language when someone was talking.
Yes.
I feel like you should be that person for me because you're so clear on everything that I'm like, okay, you just said it exactly the way that I meant it. Okay.
No, I love what you're sharing. I love the dream
you.
zone. I love your vulnerability. I love you've been through some tough stuff, and loss is the biggest teacher that I can think of for any of us is loss and death. It is a complete game changer in who we are. So like, thank you for still being here. Cause I know sometimes it's just hard to even like continue after a lot of challenge. Right. And
oh yeah. It took me years to even want to be alive. Like I just like, God, just go ahead. Cause I had a friend who had cancer and she had a newborn and I was like, just switch us out. She needs to be here for her daughter. I'm cool. I've lost some key people in my life. I'm good. I'm out. And, she died and I'm still here. And I was so pissed for so long. And then little by little, I just started kind of growing back. And it was funny because I came up to the country and my friend's place, he's starting a winery and I've been filming their family since 2006, starting this winery. And I would fly up from LA, leave my job at Paramount, fly up, film them. And their whole family, the kids all grew up with this big, it started off with a big, XL1 or whatever, like huge camera. And now all the cameras are small. But there's a tree that I drive by once everybody died. And my friend said, just come up and just spend some time up here and heal. So I drive by this tree and it was beautiful. It was right on the country road. And then I thought, oh, that's a pretty tree. And then one day I drove by and it was cut down. And I was so mad. I was like, why did they cut down that tree? It didn't even need to be cut down. And then every day I drive by, it start growing back a little bit on the side. Have you ever seen that where they cut down a tree and then some part of it starts to grow? And now it looks like a tree. And unless you got up close to it and saw the huge center part that's cut out, you wouldn't know because all the other parts have grown around it. And now it looks full and like a strong tree again. And that was me. I was like, because at first I was like, yep, that's me. I'm completely cut down. I'm dead. I'm out. But, the dream is in me. It's always been in me. And I can't stop. That was the first thing I said. I'm like, I'm not going to help anybody anymore. I'm not going to follow dreams. I'm not going to talk about dreams. So I used to have a weekly show that I talked about this kind of stuff. And after, everything happened, I was like, that's the first thing that's going to go. Everybody's on their own. I'm not going to help. It's like so weird. I was like, not even myself. But in time, I just started wanting to do it again. And that's just what it is. It's who we are. It takes more energy to push it down than to just go with it.
Yes. Oh my God. It's so true. that is so well said. Yeah. You had a rebirth like the tree did. I love it. And it's new growth happens no matter what, just because it's the nature of life is to grow. And so, we can't try to like block those branches and those different areas from coming back. But I think sometimes we need the blank slate to be able to get back to truth. And sometimes that's just the way things happen. And and we do have to take time off. When my mare died, I couldn't coach for a couple of months. And I still knew I would, but I just couldn't for a few months. So I took time off. But there's certain things that we have to do. And it's normal to feel anger and grief and loss. It's so normal. And it's normal to not want to give to anyone for a while too, because we just feel like so much was taken from us. But then ultimately, like that path, when some of my clients are somewhat, I don't usually work with depressed. I work with really kind of high performing people. But if people start to get a little depressed, the first thing I'm like, your homework is go volunteer somewhere this week, like wherever. I don't care what you do, go walk dogs, go volunteer somewhere, because the second we get outside of our own ego, which is like, I'm less than or better than, which is so like keeps us stuck, we can, and we're of service and we start to feel good. And even these conversations feel good. Right.
Right.
People listening to them are like, oh yeah, there's inspiration and there's possibility. And it just creates the shift, and that's important. It's really important right now.
Absolutely.
So
No, yeah, totally. And thank you. And I wanted to say that, one thing that a therapist told me, I didn't end up keeping her, but she was a grief therapist. And the one thing she told me was that just because they've died doesn't mean my relationship with them has to end. And
Yes.
I knew I would always talk to them, but I never really thought about it from that point of view. And now I see them, and whether I'm imagining it or not, I don't care. I see them as helping me with this work. And
Yes.
I really want to help people wake up to this thing that's always inside of them that they think is weird or silly or small or stupid or whatever. I want them to wake up to it and live it and step into it and not get discouraged by all the things that we all get discouraged by, and just keep them going. That's like the purpose of this podcast for me. Cause I'm like, I just want to keep people awake. And it is hard. It's not, because I think that the whole idea of dreams has sort of been marketed in the wrong way. People act like, oh, like The Secret, like you can manifest anything and then you can be happy, I guess, or whatever. But that's not what it is. And I think that that's really a bad, and I think once people hit those roadblocks, they go, oh, here it is. This is why I didn't want to do this. And I'm like, this is an opportunity for you to grow and understand who you are. And like you're saying, like maybe that's the shadow coming up. What is this telling you about you or about
Yes.
life or what, and instead of being like, well, this was the thing I feared. I always tell people who are starting their dreams, I say, what's your biggest fear? And they tell me, and I go, that's going to happen. So what are you going to do?
Right.
So get prepared now and start thinking about what you're going to do when it happens, because it's going to happen.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's so true. And that's the thing. Like so many people are like, oh God, this shouldn't be hard. And I'm like, really? Entrepreneurship is super hard. It should be hard. If it wasn't hard, we would all be doing entrepreneurship. And then God knows what the world would be like. But like, it truly is meant to be. And that's the thing. And yeah, one of my biggest fears was losing a horse, and I did. And it's happened before, and it will probably happen again. And so it's one of those things where it's like, it's brutal. You want to pause. You don't necessarily want to push through the grief and not, deal with it, because I found that to not go so well for people. But yeah, the challenges are there, but they're there to make us stronger. But it's like being in love, right? In relationships, they're so worth it because the love feels so amazing, and the learning and all of that. And they can trigger us, and they can get tough at times, and we can, hate our partner. And yet that ultimately, the good outweighs the bad. And that's the thing that we have to think about. It's not ever about perfectionism. It's just about the quality and the quantity of the good really outweighing the bad. And how can we start to see the bad differently too? Right. So the shadow is like, oh, it's so horrible. Nope. Like, what if we love it? What if we embrace it? I've done so much work on the shadow of just embracing, the parts of me that are selfish, the parts of me that feel insecure, because we all have them. Right. So It's just better that I go sit with those parts and give them as much love and patience as I can, and do my best to integrate them over time.
Absolutely. My biggest fear, I think, was, and I can tell by what my biggest fear is based on what I reacted the strongest to when everything kind of fell apart, was I never wanted to not have the answer. I really I embrace, I don't know now. I really try to say, I don't know. Because in my life growing up, it's like, if you didn't know and you didn't speak it quickly and clearly, then people would kind of jump on you like, oh, you don't know. It was like, I don't know if I grew up around politicians or what, but I always felt like, God, I had to have my answer straight right away. And just the way that I think, I kind of sometimes want to mull it a little bit. But anyway, so I had gotten really into that, and I got really good at it, and I got really good at expressing myself. And I always had the answer. And even when there were problems, I could still rise up and see the good in it. And I really didn't see that anything was wrong with that model. I thought it was fine. And it probably is for the most part. But when I was burning out, mixed with the unsolved death of my friend that was violent, then my brother dying unexpectedly, then my friend dying, I actually didn't have an answer anymore. And I didn't have a positive spin on it.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest fear, because now I'm coming from somewhere so foreign to me that even as a child, I was always like positive and wise, and I was always trying to figure things out and help the adults around me. So once I hit this point, it was terrifying to me, because it was like I was going back to 0, like negative zeros, whatever. And it was very foreign and very terrifying for me. But in the rebuild, I've built in a whole entire wing in the Lisa Murray building that's, I don't know. And I'm totally cool with that. And I'll say that all the time. I'll go, I don't know. I don't know. I actually don't know. And I love it. Feels
Oh my
good.
God. Yes.
I don't know, God, we're all trying to be like know-it-alls, and I see now as ego. I started to get into
Yeah.
that character and people liked me for it. And people said, oh, Lisa knows. Yeah, Lisa's in touch. Lisa's that person. And I really kind of got into it. And when I got knocked on my butt, I was like, okay, well, the people that will not believe in me anymore, once I start doing this work again, that's okay. I'm letting them go. It's okay. People that saw me before and now they're seeing me now and they might think I'm different and whatever. I am different and that's okay. And there's going to be new people that are going to be gravitating towards me that are going to be okay with what my message is now. So I'm okay.
Yes.
So I'm
Yes.
letting it go.
Yeah, that's huge. It's so wonderful when we're willing to let go of the stuff that doesn't serve us. And what I hear is you just got way more authentic, which is, huge.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Huge.
See, you're so clear. You even got that.
Yeah, but that's the thing, saying I grew up in a similar house, like, and we all had, it was like at the dinner table, who was the smartest? And I'm like, oh my God. And most of the time I never felt like I was the smartest. And now, like, I was thinking about smarts the other day and just school and all this stuff. And I just realized, because my perfectionism came from this, like, I had to get straight A's, which is so crazy. But I think about it now and I'm like, my intelligence was a little different. It wasn't the book smarts, right? And so there was a lot of I don't knows when we were talking about facts about World War II or whatever you care about. But yeah, and the biggest I don't know is why do good people die? And why do they die young? And why do they die in violent ways? That is the biggest I don't know. And I mean, I was thinking about my horse this morning and I'm like, why didn't someone see that she hurt herself? And it's just like, I don't have an answer for that. And I don't know why she died either. And I have some guesses, but you're right about that relationship piece too. Like, I still have an incredible relationship with both my horses who passed and talk to them almost daily. And so, yeah, I love that you're doing the death podcast now too, because people need to be talking about that because we're also afraid of it. And I am more afraid of death, I think, now, having seeing people go through it, seeing the horses go through it. And I've gotten a little bit of like PTS from it. Like, oh gosh, the shoe can really drop at any time. Right. And I'm sure you know that too, but to still try to feel safe here when we know that, stuff can happen,
Oh my God.
So it's challenging, right?
It is. It's like being in denial is helpful for our survival because you kind of can't think about it. You'll lose your mind. Like if you think about it all the time, if you're obsessing, oh my God, something could come flying out of the sky from an airplane that broke loose and, land on my head and kill me. Yeah, that actually could happen, but you can't even think about it. You have to block it out. But I mean, really the worst case scenario, I mean, the two people who died in my life, Derek and Michael, were my key Jenga pieces, like to my tower. For them to die young, and both of them should not have died. It was so strange. I mean, there's no one else really. There's other people that are kind of key Jenga pieces, but those were the two most solid for me. It felt personal from the universe. And I was like really pissed. But the good thing about all that is, I mean, if there's a good thing, it has broken me back open to this other thing, because we do start to overly attach to the physical dimension of life and what it is. And even if you're being worldly and spiritual, you can still fall for that. You can still get into that where you think you have all the answers. And even the unknown is something you think you even understand. And that was the worst case scenario for my life. That was the worst thing that could have happened to me, because at the time there was a lot of things that kind of crumbled because of that, because I couldn't work. So I lost a lot of stuff at that time. But you're right, it was like a whole new, like starting over. And now I'm aware of my limited time, but not in a way that I'm afraid. It's more like excited. I'm excited to be here. I'm like, okay, so I'm here. What can I do while I'm here? I absolutely want to help as many people as possible. That's what I want to do. I want to help as many people as possible, whatever that means. So that's why I do a film festival. I'm making films. I've got 2 podcasts. Like, and I laugh sometimes. I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I have so much stuff to do, but it's all stuff that I love. And then I'm helping
Nice.
people. So it fuels me. But I wanted to
Yes.
tell you why you were talking before we finish. Have you ever heard of the Johari window?
No.
Okay, so this is what I always think about. So that I learned it in nonverbal communication or whatever a million years ago. So the Johari window is there's 4 panes to the window. So there's what I know of myself to be true, but no one else knows about me. Then another square pane in the window is what you know about me, but I don't know about me. It's like my blind spot. And
Mm.
then another one, the third one is what we both know about me. Like we both agree, I have a podcast. My name is Lisa, like those kinds of things. And then the fourth one is the unknown. And nobody knows. I don't know, you don't know, but
Yes.
it's about me. And that's like, you can call it God, you can call it the universe, you can call it just the unknown, whatever. And that's what I mean by incorporating the I don't know into my life. And that also just allows for partially just practically allowing for new information to come in.
Yes.
And but then also just allowing for it to be there, just for no other reason, not to fill it up, but just to be there as an open space, because there is such a huge amnesia going on about why we are here and
Yes.
where we go, where we come from, why are we here, and where do we go when we die.
Yeah.
Huge. So that's what I think of when I
Yeah.
think of that.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I love that. That's so cool. Thank you for walking me through that, and the listeners. That's so neat, because I think people might even want to journal on that. And one of the coaches I've worked with, she will start a session like that, like with a little intention or prayer where she's like, please show me what I don't know, or please clear out all the things I think I already know.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So it allows for us to be in a new space. And yeah, the thing I will say with the shadow that I work on the most, and it's gotten so much better since I'm not in corporate America, because it really just fed it for me the way perfectionism fed in certain ways in certain places, is control, right? And control is an element of perfectionism, but it's like I'm just that will like wanting to control just to feel safe for whatever reasons, our past, our human nature, our ego. It's just it's exhausting, but it's something that in my shadow is something I'm constantly kind of trying to release, let go, surrender, and not have to have the answer, and not have to always have a plan, and to just go with the flow and see what unfolds. And that's always been hard for me, for some reason. I love knowing
I
what to
know.
do
It feels
next.
good. It feels powerful. And then it feels helpful. You're helping other people because and then for you. I always say that like consciousness is like, do you ever swim laps? Do you ever go to like a public pool
I
or
have a couple
okay.
times.
So I
Yeah.
think of it as, swimming down the first lane when you go all the way down. That's us as like a consciousness that's new to earth or new to these experiences. And you get all these experiences. And then when you hit the end, you would think, okay, that's life. And you get out of the pool and you've learned all you need to know and you move on. But I think life is you go all the way down, you learn all this stuff, you feel so amazing, you have all this knowledge, and then now you have to turn around and come back the other way. And you have to swim by all the people that you have to share the lane with. It's a crowded pool. Okay. Anyway, so you're coming back and you're learning how to interact with those who don't know yet what you already know, because you're coming back now. How do you have compassion, patience, openness? Because there's still more to learn. It's not like you learned everything and then now you're just dealing with the idiots. You learned everything and now you're still learning, because the ones that are coming behind you are learning different things. And so now we're learning on top of our learning, new learning, but it goes in the same folder because it's like the same topic, but now it's seen from another perspective. And so there's just layers and layers and layers. And that's what I think of like is challenging about life and about acquiring knowledge, is that we always have to stay open to even something we've learned a million times. There's still
Right.
a new layer from someone else's perspective, or even our own revisiting something. So yeah.
Yes, it's so true. I love that too. My mom calls it a spiral, kind of like the slinky, but yes, I love the lane analogy also, or metaphor. That's really neat.
Yeah. So
Uh,
tell me, how can people work with you? Can individuals work with you? Like if I called you and I was like, so you do coaching. Tell me a little bit about what you offer.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm very blessed that I can travel to different ranches. So I actually have one up in near the wineries where you are in Northern California, in Sonoma and Napa, that I go to and do group workshops and or privates. I'm based though outside of Boulder, Colorado, and I am in Los Angeles, California very frequently as well, because I have a lot of clients there and I work at different ranches. I've also been down to Austin, Texas, and Hawaii and New Jersey. So can pretty much go where I need to go. That's one of my commitments. And I do primarily a couple different things. So private sessions are 90 minutes. We're just working on you and anything that you want to work on. So if you wanted to work on leadership, or you wanted to work on the shadow, or you wanted to work on grief and loss, I do a decent amount of that as well. And I do both healing sessions, which are more, the horses are doing really powerful energy work with you. And then more like traditional life coaching with horses, and we're doing exercises on the ground. So it's not riding based. And group workshops, which I usually pick a theme. One of my favorites is developing intuition with women, because I think it's our greatest superpower. And I also do team buildings and leadership trainings with companies. So, smaller groups, anywhere from like 6 to 15. If they're larger, I bring in other practitioners, but I love getting companies to start to explore these topics in, safe, like reasonable ways that they're ready for. But ultimately we're talking about mindfulness and balancing work and life, and more heart-centered leadership. And so the horses are really great, and I'll work with either one horse or a group of horses, a herd of horses. And I've worked with donkeys and also goats before too. So
Oh, wow. Cool.
yeah.
So I love the name of your company, and your website's consciousrockstar.com, Conscious Rockstar Coaching. And where did that name come from?
Well, it's funny. I'm in a rebrand to just being Kate Neligan, which, oh my gosh, has been such a journey for me to go into branding myself. I'm like learning so much. Conscious Rockstar started in 2009 when I graduated with my master's, and it was, everything back then was like conscious something in the web world. And Rockstar was something I was always called in corporate America. And it was something I liked being called. Because what it meant to me is I was doing a great job, right? And what I formed Rockstar to really be is I want people to feel like rock stars in their life, like they're actually living to their highest abilities. And it is on a spiritual level more about, we are rocks. We are here on Earth. We're on this beautiful rock called Mother Earth, and we're stars. Like we're from, we have these kind of unlimited potential essences, and you can call it a soul, you can call it what feels right to you, but we're connected to the universe for sure. And so we are both rocks and stars. And so Conscious Rockstar was ultimately the name that I gave to my intuition. So if I ever wanted to access my intuition, I used to just say, okay, Conscious Rockstar. And then I would hear her, because I'm clairaudient. But now I don't need to call her that. It's just there. My intuition's there all the time. But that's the long story, I guess.
Oh my God, that's cool. Wait, you hear it? You hear your
Yeah, I am clairaudient. So like I'll hear information and it comes very fast. So sometimes I'm in direct knowing, which is, one of the intuitive gifts. I can get clairsentient, especially when I'm around the horses where I feel things. And it's rare for me to be clairvoyant where I see stuff, but it definitely does happen.
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, so is that where you want to send people? Is
ConsciousRockstar.com, and it will eventually go to KateNeligan.com. Yeah.
Kate Neligan. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. I actually learned a lot. So, I do have one more question. How did you do your TED Talk? I feel like I'm meant to do more talks, but I'm terrified.
Why are you afraid? That's a whole separate conversation. So one of the things I'm creating right now, so I'm glad you asked, is because clients have asked me for this, how to do a TEDx talk, and like my process with it, like, because it was somewhat emotional too. And I actually cleared my perfectionism, like 95% cleared it by doing that talk. So I highly recommend talks, because you will break through on your own like material if you're willing to. So I'm going to create an audio. Would you be willing to share it in the future when I have it? I'll create
Absolutely.
one on how to do a TEDx talk. Yeah. Happy to
Oh my
do
God. That's brilliant, Katie. That's brilliant. I'm going to include the TEDx talk in my show notes on ihavedreamsdammit.com for this episode. And I'm not sure what episode number it's going to be yet, but just look for Kate Neligan, her name. And I'll include your TED Talk, your website, and any other information that you want me to share. So if somebody listening to this wants to get in touch with their own conscious inner rock star, they can reach out to Katie, because I think what you're doing is so amazing. And I love that you came from what people consider so amazing and successful, which is the movie studio, which it is. And it's also great. And it takes, I want to say too, for someone who's never worked in the movie studio industry, it's extremely hard to come in from the outside.
Oh God. Yeah.
Oh my God. It's like, it took me a couple years to get a job at Paramount. It's so hard, and you have to really, I don't know. So that right there. And then the fact that you rose up to be a VP, and like, I can tell by the way you talk, you were totally revered there. Like, oh, she's so clear. She's so strong. She's so good. So you were like probably someone that they really valued, probably not for the right reasons. Isn't it weird? Like now they hire you to help them get clear, when if you were to act like that as an employee, they wouldn't like that probably. Isn't that weird?
Yeah. And I'm still friends with my bosses from there. And, it was great for so many years. And it only got hard when, there was some change in management, but also it got hard because, I needed to do something different with my life. And my therapist at that time said it was like that's the mother bird pushing the baby bird out of the nest to fly. And the way she does that is she starts to make it uncomfortable. She pulls out all the feathers. So the bird just starts to feel like the prickliness of the nest, and then it's up on the edge and jumps. And that's exactly what it was for me. It got so prickly that I had to jump, and thank God I did.
Oh, that's a cool visual. I love that. Yeah. Okay, good. So people are going to go to your website, and I'm really looking forward to your audio for the how to do a TEDx. What's TEDx versus TED Talk? Is there a difference?
TED is like the mothership. It's where Brene Brown launched. It's you have to go through quite a bit of approval to get into that space, and a lot of kind of significant background and kind of credentials and whatnot. And it's just a different level. And often some of the TEDx talks will get you into TED, but TEDx is this beautiful system where they've essentially set up local events that you can apply for. And I'm happy to share the story of how I manifested TEDx, because it's a good story. I'll do it in this audio that I'll share with you. But yeah, it's I would say TEDx for sure for a lot of people. And if you feel called, Lisa, do it. Like, don't be afraid. Like, I was so scared, and then you just eventually the fear falls away and you shine, and that's life, So.
Yeah, right. I was watching you going, are you afraid? Are you afraid? I was really like trying to watch. And I could tell maybe at the very first few words, but then I just saw you glide into it, and you were in it, and you were so good. I was like, oh my God. So you're like the best person to teach somebody else how to do it, I think.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for coming on here. And I look forward to talking to you again in the future. I'm sure we will reconnect again.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye. If you would like to connect with Kate and find out more about her group coaching or individual coaching or just everything else that she does from her conscious rockstar-ness, you can go to her website at consciousrockstar.com, and all of her other, her TEDx talk and her other links will be on the show notes on ihavedreamsdammit.com. Hope you guys have a great week, and I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.